Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to the session of Textual
Welcome.
Study of the Quran.
Ji.
Today we'll be starting off with verse 23 of Surah Maida. We have already discussed our whole discourse until verse 22. Previously, what was described was that Joshua and Caleb, two of the representatives of Prophet Moses, had been sent to give a report of what went on in Palestine and how people were there. So they came back and they gave this news that they were very tall people, very strong people, and they are dwelling there. And this actually was instrumental in bringing down their morale, the people to whom they came back. So, in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, verses 32 and 33, I have discussed them earlier that they have said that the land that they explored, it actually devours those living in it, which means that it's a very very tough. There are very tough conditions prevailing there, and all the people that they saw there were of great size, and they said that they saw the Nephilim, who we know are the descendants of Anak, who have come from Nephilim, and they seem like this is a very interesting comparison that they made. They said that we look like grasshoppers in our own eyes when we look at them, such tiny grasshoppers, and they're so tall. So this report, when they came back with this report, we know that this had a very telling effect on the morale of the whole army, and it is here from which this passage starts off by saying, "Kala rajulani min allazina yakhafuna an'ama Allahu alayhim adkhulul bab, fa iza dakhaltumuhu fa innakum ghalibun." وعلى الله وعلى الله فتوكلوا إن كنتم مؤمنين. However, from among their God-fearing men, there were two whom God had favored. They said, "Enter you upon the people of this city by forcing yourselves in through the gate. Then, when you enter it, you will be victorious and trust God only if you believe in Him." So they gave this soul-stirring speech to them, and they told them that yes, they have a tough enemy in front of them, but the only way for you to overcome your tough enemy is to just force yourselves in. Remember, God has been kind to you. He has promised you that He'll help you. So even if they are very strong people and very tall people living there, they are not going to be able to harm you. And that is why actually we can see that the expression that is used is rajulani min allazina yakhafun. So the two people, of course, as I've just referred to, are Joshua and Caleb, and they were the members of the group sent to Palestine to find out the situation there. And one thing that you might need to know regarding this expression, which says yakhafuna an'amullah, that uh, it actually refers to the Israelites who had become spineless due to the fear of the descendants of Anak. They were totally ravaged by cowardliness, and many of our exegetes, as the stars have pointed out, have generally regarded the object of the verb yakhafuna to be suppressed, which means that they were fearing something, and in fact they say that they feared God, and this of course is not appropriate here. The meaning would thus be those who fear God, and of course if people who fear God fare like this, we all know that this would absolutely be inappropriate. So the occasion entails that the expression of the object and not its suppression, because its suppression would have resulted in ambiguity. And on such occasions, we would not like the object, the grammatical object of the word to be suppressed, which in other means would actually imply the fact that they had been overcome with fear. They had been totally overcome with fear, and it's not that they feared God, but they were just, they're just fearful in the general sense. So the words that have been used near the end of this verse are, "Then when you enter it, you will be victorious and trust God only if you believe in Him." So uh, again, the reference is to the speech by Joshua and Caleb, and we know that this incident also has been recorded in the Bible, and specifically, this incident has been referred to in the book of Numbers, chapter number 14, and this is verse 6 to 9. To be precise, you can also look it up. And the words are that the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. So that is what they had said. only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people in the land, because we will devour them. And Joshua and Caleb both said that this soul stirring speech that they gave, that you don't need to fear them in any way, because we are going to devour them. Their protection is gone, which means that they have lost their security and protection from God. But Lord is going to be with us, and do not be afraid of them. So this is what they had once again said when they came back, and we know that the whole nation was overcome with so much fear and had lost courage, that the way the Israelites did, that the bravest of them became very anxious and worried. And supremely faithful and truthful is a person of integrity who, even at such precarious instances, passes the test of adhering to these traits. So it is this aspect of the characters of Joshua and Caleb, which the Quran has immortalized by mentioning it in this surah of covenant and promises. The objective is that people who make up their mind to tread the path of God are able to learn from their exemplary characters how to remain awake when everyone is, just losing his head. So, yakhafuna, of course, would mean that they were the ones who really feared God. These two individuals were the only people who were really fearful of God, and they therefore did not want them in any way to be robbed of this faith in God. And because of the fact that God had blessed them with this energy, of course, and the insight also that they had trusted the promise of God, that they delivered the same emotions and their feelings to their nation also. So go you and your Lord, and then we know that this is what they said in a very frustrating way, when the words are قالوا يا موسى إنا لندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها فاذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنا هاهنا قاعدون. But they again said, Moses, as long as they are there, we shall never enter it. So go you and your Lord and fight. We shall sit here. Fazhab anta wa rabbuka faqatila inna hahuna qaidun. So this was like a final answer from them. It meant that they in no way wanted to budge from that place. This particular aspect is not cited in the Bible in these words. I mean, the way the Quran says and has described their timidity by actually bluntly telling Moses that you and your Lord go and fight. We are not interested. We're just going to sit here. So it is not cited in the Bible in these words, but it is evident from the way the mourning and lamentation of the Israelites are mentioned, that after the assurance sounded by Joshua and Caleb by the words that Lord is with us and do not be afraid of them, they would have said the same thing which the Quran has cited here. So although the words that we find here are not exactly the same that you'll find in the Bible also, but clearly we can see the way they have been expressed here, they must have been present there as well. And this was the last coffin, the last nail in their coffin, when they decided that, well, we simply just cannot move from this place, and it's up to you and your Lord to go and conquer that place. قال رب إني لا أملك إلا نفسي وأخي فافرق بيننا وبين قوم الفاسقين قال فإنها محرمة عليهم 40 سنة يتيهون في الأرض فلا تأس على القوم الفاسقين. At this, Moses prayed, Lord, I have no authority on anyone except on my own self and on my brother. So totally separate us and these insolent people. God said, if this is the case, then this land is forbidden to them for 40 years. They will keep wandering about in the land. So now do not lament on these insolent. So clearly we can see that the request that was put forth by Moses was not accepted from the Almighty. So the request that he be relieved of the great burden of this responsibility of leading these Israelites. So he said that, please relieve me of my responsibility, me and myself, because I can only speak of me and myself. I cannot speak of other people. But God said, no, this is not going to be accepted, because of course when they said that do not lament on these insolent, so it is evident that the above request was clearly not accepted. So instead of accepting the request, on the contrary, the Almighty has said that as a punishment, they will be made to wander for 40 years in the desert. And this also is mentioned in the Bible. So, for example, If you take a look at some of the areas of the Bible, specifically, this is the book of Numbers, because this is the book of Numbers describes this incident in a lot of detail. To be precise, this is chapter 14 and verses 26 to 33. You'll find that again, what has been mentioned clearly tells us that the Quran has actually rightly reported this incident. And these words are that the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "How long will this wicked community grumble against me? I have heard the complaints of these grumbling Israelites. So tell them, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very thing I used to say. I will do to you the very thing I used to say. And what is that? In this wilderness, your bodies will fall." In this wilderness, of course, referring to the desert where they will be made to wander for 40 years, their bodies will fall. And then it is said, every one of you 20 years old or more who was counted in the census and who has grumbled against me, they will fall, which means that they will be there. None of you will enter the land I swore with uplifted hand to make your home, except Caleb son of Jephunneh and Joshua son of Nun. So again, this was made this promise that every person above the age of 20 will not be able to enter this land except Joshua and Nun, because these were the two individuals who had gone there and they were absolutely ready at the behest of Prophet Moses to re-enter. And then it is said, as for your children that you said would be taken as plunder, I will bring them, to enjoy the land you have rejected. So this whole generation will be wiped off, and the next generation, the Almighty has promised them that they will be able to enter the land of Palestine. But as for you, once again it has been repeated, but as for you, your bodies will fall in wilderness. Your children will be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering for your unfaithfulness. So again, this is a very collective punishment which is given to the whole Israelite nation. Of course, the fact that their own forefathers rejected something or did not accept something became a source of the punishment of the next generation, because of course they were included in this whole crime. So therefore, this is an extension that was given to them, that not only will they themselves suffer, but their own children will not be able to do so. And every individual who is above the age of 20, he will just not be able to enter except for Joshua and Caleb. وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ ابْنَيْ آدَمَ بِالْحَقِّ إِذْ قَرَّبَا قُرْبَانًا فَتُقُبِّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنَ الْآخَرِ قَالَ لَأَقْتُلَنَّكَ قَالَ إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. O Prophet, because of their enmity with you, they are now bent upon creating disorder. Narrate to them in all truth the tale of Adam's two sons, when each of them offered an animal for sacrifice. Then the offering of one was accepted, while the other was not. Then he whose offering had not been accepted said, I will kill you. The other replied, God accepts the offerings of only those of his servants who fear him. If you raise your hand on me to kill me, even then I will not raise my hand to kill you. I fear God, Lord of the worlds. Inni akhafullaha Rabbul Alameen. So the Arabic text is La im basatta ilayya yadaka li taqtulani ma ana bibasitin yadiya ilayka li aqtulak inni akhafullaha Rabbul Alameen. If you raise your hand on me to kill me, even then I will not raise my hand to kill you. I fear God, Lord of the worlds. I want that if you have decided to kill me, then you bear the burden. So the words are Inni uridu an tabua bi ismi wa ismika fatakuna min ashabin nar wa zalika jazaa'uz zalimin. Which means that I want that if you have decided to kill me, then you bear the burden of your own sin and that of mine as well, and be among the companions of hell. This is the punishment of such unjust people. So now, as you can see, that the incident of the beginning of mankind has been presented here before them, and have said that it was similar jealousy between, of course, the two first sons of Adam that ended up in this situation, that Cain became jealous of Abel when his offering had been accepted and his own was rejected, that he said that I'm going to kill you because of my arrogance and jealousy, that why did God accept your offering and he did not accept my offering. So as far as this is concerned, we also know that he himself said that, well, I am not going to lift my hand. I'm not going to take the initiative. If you plan to kill me, it is absolutely fine with you, with me. Matlab, I will not take the initiative. In fact, if I, out of my own defense, end up somehow killing you, then the onus will be on you, because I was not taking the initiative. You took the initiative, and I was just trying to defend myself. And if I end up killing you in my self-defense, then this sin would also lie on you. So the intention that you have made to kill me, and as a result of being killed by kill yourself through me, because of me taking the not taking the initiative and just defending myself, both will be your responsibility. And that is why it is said that this thing took place in a very precise manner, so that the Israelites could be reminded actually of this incident, that the enmity and the animosity and the jealousy that they house for the Prophet is nothing new. It is something that was found right at the beginning of time, right at the beginning of Adam's two sons. If you look at the word Qurban, the words are iskarraba Qurban. So the word actually connotes both sadaqah and animals offered for sacrifice. And whatever is offered to acquire the nearness of God is called Qurban. So Qurban is a word in the Arabic language which means that you offer something to God to attain his favor, to come close to Him. So, although the Quran has not clarified how Abel and Cain got to know whether their offering was accepted or not, but we know from other instances, for example, in Surah Al Imran, that one way in which this acceptance could have been known was that a fire would descend from the heavens and consume the sacrifice offered. So that would mean that it has been accepted. The statement of the Bible in this regard is slightly different. It is evident from it that the news was given directly by God. So normally the Quran would tell us that this acceptability, I mean, how did they get to know that one of their sacrifices or offerings had been accepted and the others sacrifice had not been accepted? So the normal thing which the Quran has stated elsewhere, as I just said, was that a fire would just descend from heaven and consume that offering, signifying the acceptance. But if you look at the Bible says that the news of acceptance was directly conveyed to Abel and Cain from God. So again, we have the book of Genesis, chapter number 4. This is verses. These are verses 4 to 7. So these verses read, "The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering." The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." So you can clearly see that this statement of the Bible, or these words of the Bible, show that the lack of acceptance of his offering was something which God Himself told him. And again, this is something which we can realize that by the words which Abel had said, "Innama yataqabbalullahu minal muttaqin," that God accepts the sacrifice and the offering of His pious servants who fear Him. So actually, Abel said this to direct the attention of his brother to the actual reality, that if you are a pious person, then your offering is bound to be accepted. Now, the thing is that you are planning to kill me in anger at your offering not being accepted, even though this is rather neither my fault nor that of God. It is totally you and your offering which are at fault. So only those offerings are acceptable to God which are offered by those who fear Him, while taking into account the requisite etiquette and conditions. So, I mean, it was from the words that it was absolutely evident that if you are not pious in your intention and you have some some other motive, then don't blame me if God has not accepted your own offering or your own sacrifice. So again, with this word that I fear the Lord of the world, the words which Abel actually wanted to convey was that, in spite of the fact that he knows full well that Cain is preparing to kill him, La im basatta ilayya yadaka Ma ana bibasiti ilayya liaqtuluk. That if you take the initiative, I in no longer am interested in taking the initiative, because now you are the one who has been instigated in this in such a manner, and therefore I am not going to take any initiative, and it would be something that you are going to do yourself. So inni uridu an tabua bi ismika fatakuna min ashabin nar wa zalika jazaa'u zalimin. فطوعت له نفسه قتل أخيه فقتله فأصبح من الخاسرين فبعث الله غرابا يبحث في الأرض ليريه كيف يواري سوءة أخيه قال يا ويلتى أعجزت أن أكون مثل هذا الغراب فأوري سوءة أخي فأصبح من النادمين. Even this did not stop him, and his soul finally persuaded him to kill his brother. And after killing him, he became one of those who procure loss. Then God sent a raven who began digging the earth to show him how to hide the corpse of his brother. Seeing this, he cried, "Woe be to me! I could not even be like this raven, so that I may have just hidden my brother's corpse." Thus, he was very ashamed on this. So, as you can see, the words are فَتَوَّعَتْ لَهُ نَفْسُهُ, that his soul, his evil desire, finally persuaded him to kill his brother, even after this warning issued by Abel that what you are doing is totally against justice, and if you end up being killed yourself because of my own self-defense, then that is a burden that you'll carry. But this has not had any effect on Cain, and his soul, as the Quran says, finally persuaded him to go on, and he went and killed Abel. We know. So this sentence has been, I mean, the way this sentence has been couched here in the Quran shows that he was definitely passing through some internal conflict. So maybe he was moved with the words of Abel, and then of course his own soul and his own evil desire got the better of him. So these words actually reflect an internal conflict in him, that he was not absolutely sure that he should do so, but ultimately his evil desire got the better of him. So this is something that we have to understand, that as far as a person is concerned, yes, there can be an internal conflict regarding good and evil, but in this internal conflict, what God wants us to actually end up in is that we overcome this evil desire. But this is something that did not happen in the case of Cain. So the act of sending the crow or the raven ascribed to God is a reference to the established practice of God, according to which people who become indifferent to the remembrance of God are consigned to Satan. So this is like that expression from Cain, that he did not even know how to hide the corpse of his brother. When he saw the crow or the raven that was sent there, he was that Abel and Cain, that human beings have not acquired the basic concepts of religion and morality through evolution. I mean, this is another very important conclusion that can be drawn, that when he felt that shame, that why did I not hide the corpse of my brother? I could have actually done that when I saw that crow doing so. It actually shows that good and evil are inspired within a human being. It is not something which you acquire as a result of any experience or outside interference. You come into this world with this feeling of right and wrong within you. That is something that again the Quran has stipulatedly pointed out here. So then it says, "Min ajli zalik katabna ala bani Israel annahu man qatala nafsan bighayri nafsin faka'annama qatala an-nasa jami'a ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا ولقد جاءتهم رسلنا بالبينات ثم إن كثيرا منهم بعد ذلك في الأرض لمسرفون." It is this rebelliousness of human beings because of which, when we gave the Sharia to Moses, we wrote in it the directive for the Israelites also, that he who killed a human being without the latter being guilty of killing another or of spreading anarchy in the land, then it is as if he killed all mankind. And he who gave life to one person, it is as if he gave life to all mankind. Moreover, besides it, this also is a reality, that to conclusively communicate the truth to them, our messengers came to them with clear signs. However, in spite of this, there are many among them who transgress in the land. Now, once again, something very, very important has been revealed here, that the Sharia that was given to Moses, of course, has this stipulation, and it has been carried forth in the Sharia of Prophet Muhammad as well, that there are just two instances of capital punishment. Just two instances of capital punishment, and that is a person, man qatala nafsan bighayri nafsin, فَكَأَنَّمَا قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا, which means that as far as death penalty is concerned, it can only be given on two occasions. One, when a person is guilty of murder, and the other, of course, it would mean that a person is guilty of spreading anarchy and disorder in the land. Other than these two occasions, there cannot be any, death penalty cannot be given in any situation. And this is not just what the Quran, of course, has said. We know that initially in the Bible also, for example, in the times of Noah, the punishment of qisas, or killing someone, was exactly the same, that you could have taken the life of the other person. But unless, of course, there was a tribal situation which did exist in the times of the Prophet in Mecca and earlier on in some other prophets, the important thing that we have to realize is that whenever an execution is to take place as a result of punishment, and all punishments have to be administered by the state. No one can take the law in his or her own hands. So when the Quran says that the punishment of murder is murder, then that punishment of murder is to be given by the state authorities, not by the person or the heirs of the deceased. The heirs of the deceased, of course, have the prerogative to forgive the murderer, but then again, this is something that will go through the forums of the state, the law forums of the state, and if they also think that this forgiveness is warranted, then of course this forgiveness can take place. Otherwise, the execution will go on. And the second of these occasions is fasad fil ard, which means you take the law in order in your hand. For example, rape or robbery. These are very common examples. Hijacking, demanding ransom on hijacking someone. So all these are instances. Similarly, when you are after the life and wealth and honor of people, you take to profligation, or you start prostitution as a profession. All these instances, for example, are connoted by fasad fil ard, or they can be represented by this word. And this actually tells us that these are only two instances. And if someone argues here that this law was actually given to the Israelites, because as the word says, bin ajli zalik katabna ala bani Israel, that because of this mentality of arrogance and jealousy in which people start killing each other, God has said that I have made it mandatory upon the Israelites. So we must not be mistaken that the Sharia of the Israelites is equally applicable to later Sharias, unless, of course, the Quran explicitly stops us from a particular directive. And, for example, we know that the Quran on many occasions has said that the Prophet has to follow the millet of Ibrahim. Inna awhayna ilayka kama awhayna ila nuhin wa nabiyyina min ba'di. And then it says that, of course, summa inattabi millata Ibrahim hanifa. In Surah Nahl, the Almighty tells the Prophet that you have to obey the previous Sharias, and that is, of course, the millet of Ibrahim. And then there is a big passage in Surah Anam in which all the prophets of God have been enlisted, almost all the prophets of God which were known to the Arabs. And once that list has been completed, the final words are فَبِهُدَاهُمْ اِقْتَدِهْ, that you have to follow the guidance, you have to follow the guidance brought down by these prophets. So no one should be mistaken by the words bin ajli zalik that perhaps this was only given to the Israelites. No, it was, of course, given to the Israelites, but it existed before that and earlier on also, and it's carried forward. And this carry forward, as we can see, is evident from these verses, that the Prophet is bound to obey the previous prophets. Of course, yes, there is an exception when the Quran explicitly changes a particular directive or wants to change it. That would be a different thing. Otherwise, it will be carried forth. So the important thing is that this law is something that has to be understood, that other than the death penalty, other than the instance of murder or fasad fil ard, the death penalty cannot be given. So there is a big misconception regarding the fact that blasphemy is something that is to be punishable by death. Similarly, apostasy to be punished by death, and some cases of adultery which took place in the Prophet's times were also punishable by death. All these are misconceptions and all have their own explanation. We have discussed them a number of times. For example, people who were given this punishment of death in the times of Prophet regarding adultery was mostly in the case when the situation was not of a common consensual act of out of marriage sex. It was basically a rape that had taken place, and hence rape itself is a form of fasad fil ard that has been prescribed. Similarly, there is no capital punishment prescribed for blasphemy in the Quran. We have discussed it on other occasions. And the last thing which also has caused this confusion is the punishment of apostasy. This punishment we have discussed elsewhere, that is specifically related to the direct addressees of Prophet Muhammad, the idolaters, the mushrikun. They were required to accept faith in him and in one God once the truth had become clear to them. The Almighty does not forgive polytheism. The punishment for polytheism is death. That is what is going to take place. I mean, the Quran says that the Almighty is not going to forgive polytheism in the hereafter. So, as a corollary of that, in this world also, people who are convinced that polytheism is something which is absolutely wrong, then they too warrant this punishment once a messenger of God is able to communicate to them. It's of course not for all the idolaters, it's for the idolaters that are the addressees of a messenger of God. So they were the ones who were given this punishment, and many of them accepted faith, we know. So about such people who once they had accepted faith, if they reverted back to their own idolatry, is it said famously that "Man baddala dinahu faqtuluhu," that he who changes his faith, you can execute that person. So that particular narrative which says that apostates have to be killed is actually speaking about these idolaters, about whom the rule was that they either accept faith or face the death penalty. So for them, it was said that if they accept faith and then they revert back, now they can not be allowed to live anymore, because of the fact that for such people the capital punishment was already in place. Also, we know in the times of the Prophet, the people of the book were not given this punishment because they were primarily monotheists and they were allowed to live on their faith. So the punishment of apostasy is something that was meant solely for the idolaters of the people of the Prophet's times. It has no bearing on any other era, and it is a grave misconception that it has entered the Islamic penal code in many countries. So clearly, we can see from this Quranic verse that either it's murder itself or fasad fil ard, which can be punished by death, and no other crime can be punished by death. So with this, I come to an end to this section of verses. You have now time for some questions. Once we are finished with those questions, I will also attempt the literal and idiomatic translation.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. So I'm waiting for a few hands to be raised. Adil Qureshi, please ask your question. Thank you.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum, Dr.
So,
Sir, two confusions I have about this. So one is that it is a human instinct to be able to defend yourself. If somebody tries to kill me, I am almost certain that I would never just simply tell him that, hey, Joe, go ahead and kill me. I will not take any action to defend myself. Was this not a human instinct with the Abel? Why did he say that I will not take any action? Even naturally, somebody tries to just aim at your throat, you will try to push him back. How did he resist this human urge to not take any defensive action? And secondly, this is not the Islamic direction as well, right? If somebody tries to kill me, I have every right to defend myself.
So this is precisely what was said here. He said that if I kill you out of self-defense, then the sin of this killing would lie on you because you are taking the initiative. So Abel is not saying that he's not going to defend himself. That's not what he said. He said, "Inni uridu an tabua ismi wa ismik," that I would like that I'll not take the initiative. I'm not going to kill you, but if you take the initiative and raise your sword against me, then I'm going to defend myself. And if as a result of that defense you get killed, then it would be something that, I mean, and that is a punishment, or it's like a sin that you will incur, not myself, because I never took the initiative. So it is not that he had said that I'll not defend myself. In fact, he said that I will defend myself. The only thing that he expressed was that I will not take the initiative in killing you. In spite of the fact I know that you are after my life, I'll wait for you to take the first step. I'm not going to take the first step in self-defense also. So self-defense has two aspects. And one is that you wait for the other person and then you defend yourself. And the other thing is that you know that the other person is going to kill you, and now before even letting him begin with that initiative, You take the initiative. So actually, Abel was referring to the second thing, not the first one.
I see. Thank you for clarifying, sir. The second confusion that I have is this this when he didn't end up killing his brother. One would imagine that when you have just killed your brother out of anger and you are feeling a shame, the shame that you will actually feel is, why did I kill my brother? Not that why
Mm,
did I not figure out how to bury my brother and I had to take
mm.
guidance from a crow. I'm just this the saying of shame sounds strange to me. I mean, the real shame should be that why did I kill him, not why did I not
Mm.
figure out how to bury him.
Right. So actually, that is what the Quran is trying to point out here. That even on that occasion, he did not realize his real folly. I mean, his shame was not the shame of a true person. His shame was that why I could have hid my crime. So you see, that is what the Quran has pointed out here, that when people they succumb to their own desires, as the Quran has said, فَتَوَّعَتْ لَهُ نَفْسَهُ قَتْلَ أَخِيهِ, that his nafs or his internal wish persuaded him, then even on such occasions, the shame should have been as you pointed out, that why did he end up doing this act? So that shame did not even come to him at that time, which is a worse thing to do. And all he could learn from the crow or the raven was, well, I could have hid my crime. So that is what the Almighty is actually pointing out, that people who succumb to their desires, they don't feel the shame of that, the extent of that gravity, they don't feel. Instead, they feel things that are related to that and which are basically trivial.
I see. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Naushad Shafqat, please ask your question.
Yes, Dr. Two questions, very short ones. One is fasad fil ard. Is it extensively defined in the Quran, or there has to be some kind of an ijma about it? Because there, as a lawyer, I have had seen people who lead the Taraweeh prayers, and yet
Hmm.
they carried out smuggling of cloth and gold, across the Pakistani border. So, question is, would smuggling come into the definition of fasad fil ard, or would it not? Or is this a generic term that is to be used?
So you see, the word fasad fil ard means to challenge the law and attack the life, wealth, and honor of people. That is what we find at other instances in the Quran, that wherever this is described, it actually refers to the fact that you become totally indifferent to what the law tells you. See, if you can perhaps gauge this difference between theft and robbery. You see, when a thief does something, he would not like to open up himself, would not like to expose his endeavor. He would do it silently, covertly. But a robber is someone who says that, come what may, I don't care about the law. I'm just going to rob a person in broad daylight. So this is the difference, that theft takes place stealthily in a way that you would like it to be hidden, but a robbery takes place in open daylight. So the intent of a robber is that he has no regard for the law, whereas a thief has fear of the law, only that he only wants to do something by not getting noticed. So basically, this is what is meant by fasad fil ard, that you are spreading disorder in the land without any regard to the order that has been uh, imposed on it through the law. So if you just reverse the word fasad, fasad means to spread anarchy or disorder. So what is the opposite of anarchy and disorder? It's order and discipline. So whenever you try to openly challenge the order and discipline or the system of law without any qualms that you are doing something wrong, then that is termed as fasad fil ard. And the example that you gave, I mean, that is an example of how people have mixed up and messed up, I would say, religion, knowing that, well, they can do their part in doing bad things, and that has a separate compartment. And if they, for example, in spite of their bad character, they they pray the Taraweeh prayer and do these good things, then they don't connect that with the evil that they do, because they think that the two will cancel off each other. All their bad deeds will be taken care of if, for example, if they do umrah or they do certain acts of piety. So that is more of a, I would say, wrong understanding of religion that has led to it. But fasad fil ard actually refers to the fact that you know what the law is and you just don't care about it. You say, okay, I'm just going to trample it beneath my feet.
Can
Thank
I
you, Dr.
ask
Saleem.
another question? This one,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
short
Ahsan.
one. Thank you. Sir, you just referred to the fact that the death sentence for idolaters and apostates was only at the time of the Prophet. But were
Right.
there idolaters at the time of the Prophet? Because Hindus did not exist at that time in the Arabian Peninsula. So, would the hypocrites who had many gods other beside Allah also be considered idolaters?
So you see, the hypocrites are a category apart. About them, the Quran says that if they stick to their ill ways, then their fate is going to be the same as the idolaters. But we know that this never took place, and they remain hidden, and the Quran did not expose them right until the end. A very major reason, perhaps, being that all the Bani Ismail or the Prophet's tribe or nation had accepted faith. And so, I mean, they remained hidden, and they were from among the Jews and the Christians, and also from the idolaters, I would say. But as you said, that this is something that is found only in the times of the Prophet, because these idolaters, they were the ones who had said clearly that we believe in one God, but we are not going to accept this verdict from you because we have found our own forefathers worshipping multiple gods. So they were basically, they had this bias and prejudice towards their ancestral religion, which made them stop accepting the truth. And it was not that they were not convinced. The Quran has said that they were absolutely convinced. Shahidallahu ala anfusihim bil kufr, as it is said, that they clearly bore witness that they were doing something of an act of disbelief when they were indulging in polytheism, but they still went on to do it.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Bisma.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Salman Aziz Saab, please ask your question.
So you gave a couple of references that the Sharia of Moses is also applicable to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And you told
Right.
about that the punishment will be given only by states. Could you please elaborate about the reference and authority about this thing?
About the state?
Yes, it is written in the Quran, sir,
Because-
or in Hadith?
Yeah. No, it's in the Quran. So wherever you'll find a collective punishment being mentioned, it will never be mentioned to an individual. It will always be referred to a society. And a society is represented by the political order. It behaves through its political order. Thus, when it is said, Kutiba alaykumul kisasu fil qatla in Surah Baqarah, that we have ordained kisas on you, the society. So now the society is being addressed in its collective capacity. And that collective capacity, of course, comes into action through their representatives, which are, of course, the rulers. And you'll find that in the case of jihad, in the case of punishments, both of them have been specifically addressed to the society and not to an individual, which is, of course, something that tells us that punishments or the call for jihad, there are two very prominent examples in which the scholars or people who might be upholding religion, they have no role to play. It is something, or people who might be offended because of some, let's say, assassination. In all these cases, whenever an offense takes place, it is the society that has to take care of that, and a society behaves through its collective system, which is, of course, the rulers.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Amar Rasool, please ask your question.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sir.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, I wanted to ask this question about the incident of Cain and Abel and how it confuses me regarding God's own role in the whole episode. Like my first confusion is that if God, obviously you yourself have said in this talk only that God knows about the future, and so therefore he knew that Cain was going to get triggered by God refusing to accept his sacrifice, and that will end up in him killing Abel. So in fact, the good son was killed and the bad son was hellbound in a way, because he had done this mortal sin. And also we cannot say that this man Cain was an non-believer, because obviously he was in direct conversation with God based on what the Bible says, that God basically had a conversation about whether he accepted a particular sacrifice or not. So obviously there was no veil between these particular men and the Almighty himself. So the Almighty knew, and yet He played this. I shudder to use this word. It almost seemed very manipulative. That he would he would trigger a bad person who has clearly jealousy issues and anger issues and many other character flaws. This is my confusion, sir, about
Yes.
this issue.
Okay. I do understand this, and yes, this is a area in which we do get confused. But you see, the one important thing that maybe you have missed out is that you see the way the Quran actually mentions certain things, and it readily ascribes them to God. There is a step which is missing, which the Quran itself, I would say, skips because it has mentioned it on so many other occasions, and that is that trigger is not going to take place because of God, but that trigger is going to take place because of your own decision that I'm going to get triggered. So you see, what happens is that when the Quran describes the situation, it describes as if it might give you the impression that God is manipulating it, maybe, or driving it, or maybe destining it. That is not the case, because you see, this is just a way of describing things that you ascribe the evil to Satan and everything good to God. However, this is something of a given, and it has been mentioned at so many instances in the Quran that whatever bad you do, if you are in under any compulsion, I mean, if you're going to do something which is forbidden and you are under compulsion, God is not going to in any way penalize you. For example, if you eat the flesh of a swine and I mean, you were pushed to do it, you had no other option, you'll not be penalized. So you see, this itself tells us that in case of restricted circumstances, in cases of compulsion, the law of God Himself changes, and it gives you enough concession so that you can go on in life. So when it says that this situation will has arisen, that the offering of one son was accepted and the other was not accepted, this was something that was intrinsic, inherent in that person. It's not that God was driving him, that person, or let's say Cain, to show his anger and jealousy. It was something that he had from inside, and something that he was expressing out of his own will. I mean, God was not pushing him, not in any way driving him to express that jealousy. In fact, if anything else, it was a opportunity for him to drive out the jealousy, because he knew that this is something wrong and I should not do it. So you see, when you succumb to evil out of your own will. Otherwise, if you do something against your own will, you have no option. Then, as I gave you this example, that God gives you this remission, that if you don't have anything to eat and only the flesh of the swine, then you're not going to be penalized. Which actually tells us that God always takes care of matters in which there is compulsion, in which a person is pushed to do something. But here we find it is not the case. It was pure jealousy, that why was my brother's offering accepted and my was not mine accepted. So, I mean, you need to do a little bit of more, maybe depth in considering in these chapters, because you see, the way they describe these things might give you that impression. But it's just a question of delving deep into it, and how we can see that God is someone who is, I mean, only going to penalize something from us that we have done willingly, and with this feeling that yes, I'm doing the right thing by wronging other people. So it's like deliberately doing something wrong.
So can I expand on this, Dr. Saleem? Can I ask a question? Uh, so basically, when we are put in circumstances, at the end of the day, it is our own free will to make that choice. So if we make a good or a bad choice, God is already aware of it. So
Yes.
that choice is then preordained, or is it just still a choice?
No, it's still a choice. The only thing is that God knows the choice that I will make. I have discussed this in one of my sessions. I said that the best way to understand this issue of determinism and fatalism, as it is called in philosophy, is to think that God is like a continuous phenomena. He is there at the beginning of time, and he's going to be there until the end of time, or wherever, but whatever you can call it. You can cross over to the day of judgment and say that God is knowledge expands from the initiation of time right up to wherever time is going to take us. So it's like He's continuously present throughout. So when a person is doing something, it's like attempting to do something. So he knows what the future is because he's standing at the end of time as well. So he's standing at the beginning of time and he's encompassing whatever you can call time. So before him is the will of a person, and before him is the consequence of that person. He already knows that. So God's knowledge is not forcing us to do that thing. We will make a choice independently out of our own will, but because he's standing at the end also, he knows what choice I'm going to make. If you just apply this rule, then you'll come to understand perhaps that you see, has given us the opportunity to do right or wrong. Yes, at times we are pushed, at times we don't have the choice, and then of course we know from the Quran that on such occasions God gives you the concession. And on other occasions, when it tells you that you have the absolute free choice to do right or wrong, and you still end up doing wrong, then God says, it is here I'm going to really catch you. And specifically for those people who are, I mean, in no confusion, who don't have any second opinion about anything. They know what the right thing is, but out of arrogance or out of any other vested interest, they actually are adamant in committing a wrong. So it is on such occasion that God really is, I mean, angry. And I think if you look back and look at our own selves as human beings, we behave no differently. We know that a person who does something out of confusion, out of any maybe let's say lack of information, then that person is always given some concession, and that is a concession that we will also get. But when I do something deliberately and in a cold way and in a calculated way, and I know that I'm doing something wrong. I mean, it is our own conscience that tells us that such a person is unforgivable. I think we should also reflect on this, that we also have the same emotions regarding such crimes.
So then, Dr. Saleem, when we say that God willed it, does that mean that, did we will it and then God just knows what we're going to do? So is
No,
that
you
a
see,
wrong?
if no. Actually, the words are when God willed it. They only are spoken when something has already happened. For example, if a person dies out of accident, you say, "Well, it was the will of God." It is not that God was driving it, or it only means that in the scheme of God, this is how it was meant to happen. It happened because of a person's mistake. It could have happened because of the other person's mistake. But when you say it was the will of God, it only means that in the scheme of God, in the grand scheme of God, this is how an event was destined to happen. Not destined in the sense that he had forced it or written it down, but in the sense that he knew that the mistake would be made by one person or the other, and it will end in the accidental death of a few people. So it is on such occasion that we say, well, it was God's will. Again, you see, this is like a loose connotation. It's like a loose word that we speak. Here we are not saying actually that God had willed this accident to happen. What we are saying is that in the scheme of God, this incident happened because, of course, we know that the reason for that happening was something that originated from the people itself. The only thing is that God knew what's going to happen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Akram Bhatti Saab, please ask your question.
If I heard it correctly, you mentioned Hazrat Noah's. So it was that Hazrat Noah's, if it was Hazrat Noah's time when this happened, then we're going to place him as the first prophet. Is it true or not?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
I
In
thought
Noah's time, what?
maybe I misunderstood it. I heard that you said it was Noah's time, Hazrat Noah's time. When
No,
this,
no. I was explaining that this law of Qisas was not just given to the Israelites, it was also given to Noah. And that was the citation that I gave from the book of Genesis, that in Noah's times also, it was the same law of Qisas that was implemented. So the discussion that was going on at that occasion was that people say that these verses relate to the Israelites only, because it says man qatala nafsan, and before that it says bin ajli zalik katabna ala bani Israila, we have ordained on the Israelites, and then it goes forward. So I was trying to explain that this is not correct, because it's not something that was ordained for the first time with the Israelites. The law of Qisas was in place much before that, and for that the example of Noah was given actually.
okay, so it's not, we cannot say that this happened when Noah
No,
was.
no, certainly not.
That was the conclusion. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Amar, also please ask question, Amar. Thank you.
Thank you for another opportunity. Thank you. Sir, I just wanted to ask you another question about the same incident. Can it be said that the way that the story has been told, once again, I seek God's forgiveness if I'm saying something wrong. Can it be said that the story has been told in a way in which one is led to believe that this incident is just a one-off incident? It happened out of the blue, and then one was killed and the other was damned. Whereas it would have been much better if we were told that this man, Cain, had a history of evil doing, because God explains in the Quran, as you yourself have said many times, that when a person is damned, he's first given many chances, and when he fails numerous times, only then gods decide that now, I'm going to shut the door of rahmat on him, and even prophets cannot decide who is going to get the hidayat and who is not. So clearly, if we apply that rule to this incident, it seems as if Cain must have led a whole life that had led to this incident where he had committed evil, and finally God had decided that enough is enough, and now a final reckoning has to happen. And so this incident transpired, and it became a defining moment for us to understand.
Well, you see, I do get your point. You see, a person becomes a murderer and not in one day. I mean, such people have their own history. Obviously, such things, they have a background. But let us suppose that even if this history was not present and it was something that was instigated right at that moment, don't you think it would still be okay? Because you see, after all, a person was after the life of another person, and the other person had very calmly warned him that you are doing something wrong. Because had you been on the right, I would have taken the initiative and and wiped you off myself first. I am on the defensive side. If something is accepted by God, it's not my fault. You must argue with God. So you see, Abel had done the needful in trying to calm him down, in trying to tell him that even if it is something that is happening to you now, and maybe previously you were a reasonably good person, now you are doing something extremely bad. So I think it was not like a one off incident. I would say that any murder that takes place in this world, you can imagine that, does not need to have a history all the time. Yes, people who have a history, they are more prone to murders. But people who don't have history and they suddenly get instigated and do something out of jealousy, it could be something that rises on the spot as well. And for that also, we know that God does give the chance. And as the case is the case here, that Abel was trying to put across him that you are cross with me. Why? What's my fault? I mean, I have done nothing. All that I have done is I have complied with the order of God of making an offering. So if you have anything to say, you have to say it to God, not to me. So I think this frenzy in which Cain actually was afflicted with was something that in no way could be condoned. So I think that even if this is a one-off incident, it did warrant this punishment. And I think that if you look at the carefully chosen words of the Quran, I mean, they tell us that even after the murder that he had committed, he was not ashamed of the murder at all. He was more ashamed that why was he not able to hide it? So you see that evil intent is something that remorse that should have happened did not even come after the murder, which tells a lot about his character actually. That it was something that had become part of his life also, and even if that is something that was not fully sort of alluded to by the Quran, it must have been there in some dormant form.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. We have no more questions. You can continue.
Okay,
So
so now
can
I'm
I
going
can I
to
Yeah,
very
go
quickly
ahead.
okay.
ask a counter
If
to
I
this?
please, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, in your discussions, I have heard many times that it has been said by the Quran, and obviously explained by you, that if a sin happens in a fit of blindness, moral blindness, and when you come out of it and you come out of that zone,
Mhm.
if you seek tawbah, then it is a promise by God that He will forgive you. It is not a
Mm,
choice for God. He has made that promise, and
mm,
He will forgive you.
mm.
But unfortunately, uh, for a murder, for killing somebody, another human being, if you kill somebody in a frenzy and come out of that zone, you can't take it back. Even if you say your tawbah, how is
Yes.
God going to?
So you see, these are two separate things. The one that you mentioned earlier on in Surah Nisa, it says "Ya'muruna su'a bijahalatin." You do something wrong against God, and that is not something, that's not a sin which has been committed against a person. So because a sin that is committed against a person, about that we know from other instances of the Quran that you have to make amends for that. You just cannot say sorry and get away with it. So this is specifically meant that if you do something, you commit some offense against God, and you do it in frenzy, then you come out and ask for forgiveness from God, and He's going to forgive you. For example, I mean, there could be several examples in which you, let's say, not use your eye, you let your eyes take the liberty, do some bad things which are something that relate to you solely, and as a result of that, you are disobeying a directive of God. So that particular sin or that particular category of sin does not include sins that are committed against people, like, for example, murder.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem.
All
We
right,
have
sir. Thank
a
you.
few more raised hands now, so I'll have to take the questions if that's okay.
So I think that I would first try to finish off the idiomatic
Okay.
and literal translation, and inshallah we'll have some time near the end.
Okay.
We can take the rest of the
Okay,
questions.
thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Saleem.
Okay. So we start off with the translation, literal and idiomatic, from verse number 23. Qala rajulan. So qala said, rajulan, two people. Rajulan is a dual, which means two people. Minal lazina, from among those yakhafuna, who fear, annamallahu alayhima, to whom God has shown favor, to the two whom God has shown favor. So what did it say? Udkhulu, enter, alayhim, upon them, al-bab, through the gate. So enter upon them through the gate, and literally it means that you force yourselves into the gate. Fa, therefore, iza, when, dakhaltumuhu, you enter it. So therefore, when you enter it, fa innakum ghalibun. Fa, therefore, innakum, you, ghalibun, dominant. So when you enter it, you will become dominant. Wa, and, Allah, on, Allah, God. Fatawakkalu, repose trust. So on God should you repose trust. In, if, kuntum, you, mu'mineen, believers. So you should trust God if you are believers. Qalu, they said, Ya Musa, O Moses, inna, indeed we, lan, certainly not. Nadkhulaha, enter it, abadan, forever. So they said, O Moses, we shall never enter that place. Madamu fiha, madamu, as long as, fiha, in it, as long as they are in it, we will never enter that city. Fazhab, fa, therefore, izhab, go. Therefore, go, anta, you, va, and rabbuka, your Lord. Therefore, you and your Lord go. Faqatila, and fight. Inna, indeed we, hahuna, at this place, qaidun, sitting. So you and your God go and fight. We are sitting here. Inna hahuna qaidun. We will be sitting here. We will not go with you. Qala, Moses said, Rabbi, O Lord, inni, I, la amliku, I do not have any power, illa, except nafsi, my own self. So Moses said, I do not have any power except on my own self, wa akhi, and on my brother. So all that I have is myself and my brother, about whom I can say that I have power and authority. So fafruk means, so therefore separate us, bainana, between us, wa baina, between al-qawm al-fasiqeen, the defiant nation. So fafruk would mean separate or cause separation, bainana, between us, and between the defiant nation. Qawm al-fasiqeen, the nation who is defined. Baina means between. Qala, he said, this is Qala means God. God said, fa innaha, therefore it is, that city is muharramatun, is haram on you, is forbidden on you, alayhim, on you. Arba'ina sana, arba'ina means 40, sana means years. So God said that that city is forbidden to you for 40 years. Yatihuna. Yatihuna means you will keep wandering. Fil ard, in the land. They will keep wandering, in fact, not you. They will keep wandering in the land, wandering in the land. Fa, and, la, not. Ta'sa, be sorrowful. Ala, on. Al Qawm al Fasiqeen, the defiant nation. So God said that that land is going to be forbidden to them for 40 years. Yatihuna fil ard, they will keep wandering in the land. Fala, I mean, of course, outside of that land. So Muharramatun, of course, refers to the city of Palestine or the area of Palestine. You'll not be able to enter that, and you'll be just wandering about in the desert. Fala, therefore, not ta'sa, express sorrow, ala on qawmul fasiqeen, the defiant people. So God is telling Moses that don't be pitiful on these people because they deserved it. They deserve to be wandering in the desert for 40 years. Watlu alayhim, wa and utlu means narrate, alayhim upon them, and narrate upon them. Naba means something which is a great news, something which is a great or a big or a very important piece of information. So narrate to them the news or the information of Ibnai Adam, the two sons of Adam. Ibnai, two sons. Adam of Adam. Bil haq, in all truth, which means that narrate to them in all truth the tale of the sons of Adam is when Karraba, one of them offered a sacrifice. Qurbanan, of course, is the same thing. Fatukubbila min ahadihima. Fatukubbila means was accepted. Min ahadihima, from one of them. Wa and lam, not. Yatakabbal min al akhir, and not accepted. Lam yatakabbal, not accepted. Min al akhir, from the other. So it is said that both these sons offered sacrifice, but the sacrifice of one of them was accepted. Fatukubbila was accepted min ahadihima, of one. Wa and lam, not. Yatakabbal min al akhir, not accepted from the other. Qala, now this is the person who has taken the initiative. He said, La aqtulannak, of course referring to Cain. I shall definitely kill you. So Cain, addressing Abel, said, La aqtulannak, I shall definitely kill you. Qala, now the replies from Abel. Qala innama, indeed, yataqabbalu, accepts, Allah, God, minal muttaqeen, from the pious. So Abel's reply was that indeed God accepts the offering of the pious. La-im basatta, he is continuing with his statement. He says, La-im basatta ilayya, la-in, if, basatta ilayya yadaka, you extend your hand on me. This is like one phrase. Basatta ilayya yadaka, you extend your hand on me, referring to the fact that you raise your hand on me to litaqtulani, in order to kill me. Ma ana, I am not, bibasitin, extending, yadayya, my hand, ilayka, towards you, liaqtulak, in order to kill you. So idiomatically it would mean that if you raise your hand to kill me, I am not going to raise my hand to kill you. Inni, indeed I, akhafu means fear, Allah, God. Indeed I fear God, Rabbal Alameen, who is the Lord of the worlds. Inni uridu, I want, antabu'a bi ismi wa ismik, that you gather your sin and my sin, which means that you bear the burden of your sin and my sin. Ismi, which means mine sin. Ismik, your sin. Fatakuna, so therefore you become min ashabin nar, from among the companions of hell. Wa, and zalika, this, jaza'uz zalimeen, is the punishment of the wrongdoers. So remember, this is a word that you have to understand, that the word jaza normally is used when in our own language, when some positive recompense is to be given. But in the Arabic language, the word jaza does not always refer to some positive recompense. It refers to reward, and it can refer to punishment. So the context will occasion it, and here, of course, the word jaza is used because of their sins. So therefore, now it would mean that this is the punishment of such people, of such wrongdoers, of such unjust people. فَطَوَّعَتْ لَهُ نَفْسُهُ. Fatawwat means persuaded. Fa is therefore tawwat lahu would mean persuaded his nafs, his soul, persuaded him. What did it persuade him to? Qatla akhihi, to murder his brother. Therefore, faqatalahu, therefore he murdered him, therefore he killed him. Fa asbaha, fa, therefore asbaha became minal khasirin, among the losers. So his nafs, his soul persuaded him to kill his akhi, to kill his brother, and he killed him. And he became among the losers, or among who suffer a loss. Fa, therefore, ba'asallah, sent God. Ba'asa, send, Allah, God. So God sent Ghuraban. Ghuraban is a crow or a raven. Yabhasu. Yabhasu fil ard would mean that he would dig in the earth. Bahasa means to dig or to find, fil ard, in the earth. Liyuriyahu, so that he shows to them, shows to him, in fact. So the raven started to dig the earth, liyuriyahu, in order to show Cain, kaifa, how, yuari, hide, sawata, corpse, akhihi, his brother's corpse. So the raven came and started to dig the earth so that he could show, this was of course the result, that how you can hide the corpse of your brother. This is like an inference which actually Cain had made. Qala, he said, Ya Vailata. Ya Vailata is like an expression of sorrow. Oh, pity me. Oh, what has become of me? Something like that. Ajastu, have I become incapacitated? Which means that I could not even do something. And that akuna, that was misla, the same as hazal ghurab, this raven. So he says that what a pity on me. I was even unable to do what this ghurab has been doing, what this crow is being doing. Misla hazal ghurab. Fa uwari. So therefore I would have hidden sawata, the corpse akhi of my brother. So I could not even be like this crow, so that I could have hidden the corpse of my brother the way this raven is doing so. So I mean, of course, he was not burying or doing anything. He was just digging the earth, and this digging of the earth actually gave this idea to Cain that, well, he could have actually hidden the corpse of his brother the way this crow was digging the earth. Fa asbaha. Fa, therefore, asbaha became, min, from among, nadimin, who are ashamed. So Cain became among those who are the ashamed, who are the ashamed. So again, you can see that the shame that he had was not of the murder that he had committed, but of the fact that he could not hide his or conceal the murder. Min ajli zalik. Min, because, ajli zalik, this happening, because of this happening, katabna means we wrote it down or we ordained, ala, upon, Bani Israel, the Israelites. And what did God ordain? Annahu, that, man, he, katala, kills, nafsan, a soul, bighairi nafsin, without that soul being guilty of killing anyone, or fasad, disorder, fil earth, in the earth, or of spreading disorder in the earth. Fa, therefore, ka'annama, he is, qatalan nasa, qatala means kill, and nasa, people, jamia, all. So, idiomatically, it would mean that a person who kills one soul without that soul being guilty of killing anyone, or without that soul being guilty of spreading disorder in the land, it is as if he ended up killing the whole mankind. Qatalan nasa, all, qatalan nasa would mean killing mankind, jamia, all of it. So it is as if he ended up killing all mankind. Wa, and, man, he, ahyaha, who let it live. Faka'annama, so therefore it was as if, ahya, he let live, annas, people, jamia, all. So if he gave life to one person, it is as if he gave life to all mankind. Faka'annama, therefore ahya, gave life, annas, people, jamia, all. So he, as if he gave life to all mankind. Wa, and, laqad, indeed, ja'athum, came to them, rusuluna, our messengers, bil bayyinat, with signs. So indeed came to them our messengers with signs. Summa, then, inna, indeed, kathiram minhum, kathira means a lot, minhum, from among them, ba'da zalika, after that, fil arde, in the land, la musrifun, who commit excess. So what is being said here is that after that came many of my messengers with signs, but in spite of that, many of them, after having witnessed these signs in the land, they became people who exceed the limits. Fil ardi la musrifun, they are ones who exceed the limits, fil ard, in the land. So this is how we can see and analyze this whole passage. Just a word once again that I normally remind you, that the purpose of this literal and idiomatic translation again is to bring you closer to the text of the Quran. So first we boil down the text of the Quran in a broad sense by understanding its textual implications, and then this, in the second reading, we try to come closer to the text so that you are able to relate to the actual sentences through their literal meaning, and if, as I said, I do recommend that please do write down the vocabulary of the Quran that you come across in our literal translations, because that vocabulary is bound to repeat itself in later chapters of the Quran, in later surahs of the Quran. And if you keep on revising that vocabulary, I can tell you, without learning Arabic, you will be in a position to understand a very large part of the Quran, which actually is the purpose of this exercise. So now you can utilize the remaining time for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. There are no more raised hands, so I'm going to ask you a question. So the chronological order is that Moses left Egypt, and then that's when he was in the desert with the people. He went away to get his commandments to the mountain. The people got manosalva, and then they started praying to the golden calf. And then Moses came back. He was upset with them. After that, were they punished again? And that's when they moved on to
Yes.
this land to Palestine. That's
They were
when.
punished again. So you see, this all happened simultaneously. They were punished for calf worship, and then the Almighty said that this land has been made holy for you, and I have ordained it for you. You go there and establish a center of monotheism there, and from there you can convey the message of monotheism to the rest of the world. So they were told this, and you'll find this in the beginning of the surah as well. And so as is generally done, it was said that okay, we will go and take over this land, but for that we will find out what goes on there. And then we see from this passage also that Joshua and Caleb were sent. They came back with this news, and that actually totally made them faint-hearted, and they did not feel like entering that land. Whereas it was for this purpose that Moses had actually taken them out, or actually had become possible for them to liberate them from the shackles of the Pharaoh. So remember, they were living with the Pharaoh ever since the times of Joseph, and right until Moses, this had transpired that they were living in bonded labor in very bad circumstances. So Moses was sent to them so that he could bring them out from the slavery of the Pharaoh right into the land of Canaan, which is of course Palestine, so that they could establish a center of worship there, of monotheism. And then from that particular platform, the idea was that they would spread monotheism to the rest of the world. But of course, this never happened because of their various travails and their various sins. The last of them being that they wanted to crucify Jesus. So, I mean, this is how it went, and ultimately, this leadership was taken from them, from the Israelites, and transferred to the Ishmaelites.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saleem. I have a few more questions. Actually, they're off-topic questions now because I don't see any more raised hands pertaining to the passage we did today. Is it a sin to love and interact with someone prior to marriage without going into sexual activities? According to divine and prophetic teachings, we often see in Islamic families it's nearly a crime to have or convey such feelings. So, it's a chat question.
So, this is not true. To fall in love is a very natural thing, to have feelings of love for the opposite gender. This is how God has made us. We just cannot control ourselves. If this happens, it's just but natural. There's nothing wrong about it, there's nothing sinful about it. What needs to be done is that when such feelings do arise, and you have an affiliation or fondness for someone, then obviously steps should be taken so that you can enter into a permanent marriage bond. And if that is still lacking, because or still not possible because of maybe the boy and the girl are studying, or they have yet to set up their careers, so then in those circumstances, of course, they should wait and take the necessary precautions. For example, not meeting each other in private, or not indulging in too much of a frank relations. But yes, that those feelings cannot be suppressed. Those feelings will always be there because they are natural feelings. The only thing is that no act of nothing indecent, nothing which is unbecoming of the two should come into place. The rest is fine.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. So it's going to be off-topic questions now, I think. Ruhi Rasool, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Sir, all the people are not given the same wisdom by Allah Ta'ala. So
Right.
Habil and Kabil, they were not same in this sense. Although Habil told his brother that your offering was probably not accepted because you were not sincere, or God accepts only from those who sincerely present their offerings. But in spite of that, he didn't understand that, and he was sort of he was fierce on this incident, and he killed his brother. And as you explained just now, that he was not he was not ashamed of the fact that he has killed his brother. Rather, he was ashamed of the fact that it was the crow who taught him how to hide the corpse. The question is that all the people are not given the same kind of wisdom. Some of them are silly and they don't understand what they are doing and what is expected of them from God Almighty.
You see,
They
there's a
probably
difference between not having wisdom and doing something evil. When I kill someone in cold blood, that has nothing to do with wisdom. That is using my authority in a wrong way. I have not, don't have the right to take the life of a person, even if that person is abusive to me, even if that person is doing something wrong. I don't have the right to kill that person. So it's not a question of wisdom. It is a question of succumbing to your own evil wish that why did someone say these words to me? You feel that arrogance in you, and you, instead of maybe finding out the real cause of your own arrogance, you end up killing the other person. So I cannot say in any way that this is classified as a lack of wisdom. It's a blunt acceptance of the fact that I am the superior person, and so therefore, if your offering was accepted, mine should have also been accepted. So it was that jealousy that entered, and that has nothing to do with wisdom.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Shabnam, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
जी थैंक यू सर अकीका से मुतालिक क्वेश्चन है somebody asked me कि मैं आपसे पूछ दूं सर ये हमें पता है कि ये एक ट्रेडिशन थी जिसे प्रॉफिट ने अलाउ किया टू कंटिन्यू और सर ये जो 7वें दिन वो बालों का देते हैं बाल उतरवा के बेबी के उसके बराबर चांदी सदका करते हैं तो सर ये शुक्राने का एक तरीका है लेकिन सर वो जानना चाह रहे हैं कि क्या प्रॉफिट ने अपने अपने बच्चों या अपने ग्रैंड चिल्ड्रन में से ही उनके उसवा में ये मिलता है कि उन्होंने खुद भी कभी किया हो
You see, the Prophet himself, when he was said that this is what happens, that he cut the hair of their child or even shave off the hair, and then they do this. He said that I cook or akika, because you see, the belief of the Arabs was that they would sprinkle. So, in actual fact, we know that the Prophet did not approve of the whole ritual of akika. This is a big misconception that people think that the Prophet approved of it. He in fact said the words "Ana la uhibbul uquq." I do not like this uquq or this aqiqah. All that you should do is that if you feel like to express your gratitude to God that you have been given an offspring, yes, you can sacrifice an animal and distribute the meat among people. That is what he said. You see, the original ritual of aqiqah was that people would slaughter an animal and also shave off the head of the boy or the girl born, and they would sprinkle the blood of the sacrificial animal on the person's on the boy or the girl's or the infant's face or his body or her body, and this was a superstition that they had, that this will actually protect that child from any problems or travails of life. So the Prophet expressively said that this has nothing to do with Islam. Yes, if you would like to sacrifice an animal purely for the sake of gratitude to God, you can do so.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. So the question I asked you earlier about the interaction between a male and a female, the same person has asked, sir, can they interact till marriage in a way which does not lead to zina?
Of course they can. Why not? I mean, it has not only, I mean, they should stop well short of zina. They should have a decent behavior. They should have a demeanor in which, I mean, they maintain a safe distance, because you see, the reputation of a person is at stake. You never know if you don't end up, for example, God forbid, if they don't end up marrying, then if they come closer to each other and give this impression that they are in a relationship, this can damage the repute of that boy or girl either ways, or even go and create more issues for them if they come closer to each other. So maintaining a healthy, safe distance, and while at the same time talking to one another in a normal way is fine. But I mean, that is the important thing, that anything which becomes intimate is like it can trigger something. I mean, when you start meeting each other in private, when you start discussing ways in a frank way, then see, all these are triggers that can cause that untoward situation and also create a wrong impression about your reputation. So when you are going to be together with someone, it has to be with the impression to the outside world that now you are in a bond of marriage. And until that happens, it could, I mean, you could have that feeling and also express it in a very subtle way, but no more than that.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. We have another question. Okay, this question: why did Allah make blood the only liquid with every micronutrient and then forbid us to drink it? Why is something so healthy forbidden?
Well, whether it's conducive for health or not, that is not a problem that we need to tackle. That's more for science to say. But there are so many things that might be healthy, but they create a negative effect or a bad effect on a person. So if you look at the dietary laws of the Quran, it says that anything that creates savageness in a person or creates that beastliness in a person is forbidden. So when you drink blood, that is the thing that you have, I mean, that you acquire, that you have that beastliness or that savagery in you. Otherwise, I mean, no one would be drinking that blood. That is precisely why the Almighty has said that anything that creates that feeling of savagery in you should be avoided. And precisely that is why the flesh of the pig was avoided. Precisely that is why maita, the dead, I mean, the normal animals who would be allowed if you are have you slaughtered them, they would be perfectly allowed. But now that they have died, the blood has stuck to them in their veins, and now you should not consume them. So basically, we should remember that as far as medical conditions are concerned, that is not the I mean, that's not the point regarding which the Quran gives the verdict. For such issues or instances, it leaves the verdict to your own common sense and medical science, and gives you the choice. But anything which is morally or it has a very telling effect on your own personality, it is here that the Quran gives a piece of guidance. And the reason for the blood not being consumable is that, of course, it is something that can create that element of beastliness and savagery in the person who consumes it.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Salman Aziz, please ask your question.
So there's a perception that after the first murder, every other murder in the world that takes place adds to the sins of Cain. Is it true or not, sir?
Yes, it is true. Because you see, when you start off with a bad tradition, and that tradition is something that you leave behind, and that is something that is going to, let's say, instigate other people to do the same bad thing, then you are actually accumulating something for your own self. I mean, it's not just with Cain, it will be with any person. If I do a bad deed, it could be murder, it could be something else, and if that perpetuates and inspires other people to indulge in the same thing, then commensurate or in proportion to what you are doing, the original person will also get its share of evil.
Now, Shafqat Sahab, please ask your question.
Sir, you just said that Cain would also be vicariously liable for all murders, but there are millions who are not even aware of Abel and Cain. How could such a
that is not I mean, that is not what we are referring to here. What we are saying is that if a tradition is an evil tradition, without knowing where it originated, because I am leaving behind a legacy, and that legacy is something which is making me instigated or inspired or motivated. So every time I do that, even if I don't know who is the originator, because of the fact that that originator left that bad tradition as a lighthouse of inhumanity, you can say. So that is going to be ascribed to that person as well. Yes, the extent would be as much as God would deem appropriate with justice. It's not that the person who's committing that murder would be allowed to go scot-free. He will have his own share. But the amount of that tradition that he has maybe furthered is going to have some trickle-down effect on the original person as well, because he was the originator. And this goes for good deeds as well. So every good deed that you do and that inspires other people, into doing good deeds, so that is going to have a commensurate effect, not an absolute effect, a trickle down effect on other people as well.
But sir, what if he is not aware at all? How would one attribute something if one is not aware of Cain and
So
Abel?
you see, it's not the question of he being aware. I
The
mean,
tradition,
even if he's not being aware.
he has to be aware of the tradition. He is not aware of the tradition. He is doing
So
it
if
out
he
of
is
his
not,
own.
you see, what we are doing is, so that person is not going to get the blame for that. It is Abel who, or Cain who set that tradition. Because of the fact that he knows that tradition, so every murder that is going to take place is going to have some accumulation in his deed also. Because you see, in this situation, his knowledge is not essential. I mean, because for him, he will be punished for his own sin. Now the question is that because that sin is something that was originated by some other person, so now in spite of he not, I mean, knowing what he was furthering, the thing is that because Cain himself had left a tradition behind, which without being known who actually originated it, it actually was a tradition. So you see, you have to view this whole incident from the angle of Cain himself, that he left behind something, and that perpetuated after him all the time till the day of judgment. So every time some murder happens, there is got to be some responsibility on him as well, because he was the one who started it, regardless of the person who committed it. I mean, that is another issue.
Sir, if somebody, for example, digs a well today, will some part of that goodness also be given to somebody who built a well 1,000 years ago?
So I think that might be extending something very, I would say, overstretching. But what you can say is that any good deed that was started off with some person, and every time that good deed happens, because of the fact that it became a tradition later on, that person is going to have some reward of that. That should be okay. Remember, that reward is not going to be such that it's going to change the whole outlook of the whole reward itself. It's going to be something that adds to the blessings of God, something
Thank you so much.
additional.
Sorry, Dr. Saleem. So thank you so much, Naushad Shafqat Sahab. We have a last question, Dr. Saleem. We'll ask it next time. Since we're all out of time, if you have a little time, I can take it. Otherwise, we
Okay,
can.
please go ahead. Go ahead with the
Ahmed,
question.
okay, Ahmed, please make your question very short so we can end the session.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. My question is, partly during Musa alayhi salam's time, there was, I believe, a time when there was no rain. And Allah Ta'ala said that there's somebody who sinned amongst you, who has many sins, and unless he comes forward, there won't be rain. But then there was, Allah Ta'ala forgave him. So it's kind of a notion of instant forgiveness for a long build-up of sins or instant notification. So I just wondered your context on that, if that's true or how you see it.
Where
And
exactly is this mentioned? Where have you read this?
it's a
It's
hadith,
not.
somebody,
I
it's,
mean,
sorry, it's something that mentioned to me. It's not valid, you don't think?
there is no authenticity to this. If
Okay.
this was an incident, it has to have a lot of other details, and it has to be reported in a reliable way. So these are a
Okay.
lot of things that circulate in the name of religion, and they need to be verified. So I need to look at the whole incident and see where it is mentioned and what are the details to give a comment. But by the looks of it, the way you have described it, it cannot be in any way regarded as authentic, unless, as I said, there are some more details.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in this session. And inshallah, we'll see everybody next Sunday. Khuda Hafiz.